It's a frigid January night in 2005. A man's digging through a dumpster behind the Hollywood Video, hoping to find something to resell.
Yeah.
But instead he finds something horrifying,
Oh,
the
no.
body of a young woman.
Wow.
This is the story of Sheree Allen, a 22-year-old mother of four from Salt Lake City. And the question that's haunted investigators and her family for years is who killed Sheree Allen and why?
Right.
So today we're going to take a deep dive into this cold case using firsthand accounts and investigative details, primarily from the true crime podcast, The Deck, to try and piece together what happened.
Interesting.
This is a story that not only highlights, the tragic loss of a young life, but also reveals the complexities and challenges of seeking justice when a case goes cold.
Absolutely. You know what strikes me is how this case began with this chance discovery.
Yeah,
It really underscores the unexpected ways these investigations can unfold.
exactly. And as we get into Sheree's life, we discover she was more than just a victim. She was a loving mother to two sets of twins. She was close to her mother Lily and her siblings. And she dreamt of becoming a nurse someday.
That's right.
But Sheree also faced challenges.
Of course.
She struggled with substance use, she was involved in sex work, and she was dealing with a strained relationship with her estranged husband.
It's so important to acknowledge these complexities, not just to understand Sheree as a person,
Right.
but also to recognize the systemic factors that often contribute to these kinds of tragedies, poverty, addiction, and the exploitation of vulnerable women. These are issues that intersect with Sheree's story in really profound ways.
Yeah, absolutely. So the investigation started immediately, and thankfully the police were able to identify Sheree quickly through fingerprints.
Good.
They spoke to her mother, Lily, who had the heartbreaking task of identifying her daughter's body. Can you imagine the pain and anguish a parent goes through in that moment?
It's just a stark reminder of the human cost of these crimes. We often focus on the forensic details, the evidence.
Right.
But behind every case is a family grappling with immense grief and loss.
Absolutely. So as the police dug deeper, they focused on a key person of interest, Carl Swanigan, also known as Big Smooth, who was Sheree's on-again, off-again boyfriend,
Okay.
and one of the last people to see her alive.
What's interesting about Carl is there's a lot of conflicting information surrounding him.
Yeah.
Some people describe him as a caring partner, while others paint a much darker picture suggesting involvement in dangerous activities. And it's these inconsistencies that often make investigations so challenging.
And to add to the complexity, the police also interviewed Sheree's estranged husband, Eric Green. But despite their efforts, they couldn't find enough evidence to charge either Carl or Eric at the time.
That's a common hurdle in these cases, right?
Yes.
Establishing a clear timeline, pinpointing motives, and relying on witness testimonies can be incredibly difficult, especially when those accounts might be influenced by personal biases or fear.
Then things took an even more perplexing turn.
Okay.
The police received an anonymous tip mentioning unpaid court costs Sheree's mother's church and a possible link to Carl. But it was vague, lacking specific details, leaving the police with more questions than answers.
Yeah, anonymous tips can be valuable, but their reliability varies greatly. Without concrete details to corroborate the information, it becomes really difficult to determine their legitimacy and pursue them effectively.
Then there's Willie Moore, who was incarcerated at the time,
Okay.
but had Sheree listed as his wife. And he seemed genuinely concerned for her, and even offered additional names of people who might have known something. He even suggested the police look for Sheree's cell phone because she'd been carrying his.
This just highlights the intricate web of relationships that often surrounds a victim. It underscores the importance of thoroughly examining each connection because even seemingly peripheral individuals might hold crucial pieces of the puzzle. And as you mentioned, a cell phone could contain a treasure trove of information.
Yeah.
Contacts messages, location data, all potentially valuable to the investigation.
And while the police pursued these leads, Sheree's family prepared for her funeral. Her mother, Lily, spoke so movingly about her daughter's kind heart, her aspirations, and the devastating loss her family was enduring. Lily wanted the world to remember Sheree for the person she was, not just the challenges she faced.
Lily's words are a powerful reminder that behind every victim is a story, a life filled with love, dreams, and complexities. It's essential to recognize that humanity amidst the tragedy.
Absolutely. And it's that humanity that fuels Lily's determination to find justice for her daughter. She wants answers. She wants to know who took Sheree from her.
And that's where the need for continued investigation, for public awareness, for keeping these cases alive becomes so crucial. Someone out there might hold the key to unlocking this mystery. Sometimes all it takes is a single piece of information, a memory-triggered a change of heart to break a case wide open.
Exactly. And that's what we're going to explore further as we continue our deep dive into Sheree Allen's case.
I can't wait.
But before we do, let's take a moment to reflect on the weight of this case, the unanswered questions and the ripple effects of such a tragedy. If this case resonates with you, if it sparks even a flicker of recognition, consider sharing this deep dive with your friends, family, or anyone who might have been connected to Sheree or Salt Lake City back in 2005. Sometimes the answer is just a conversation away. And for more captivating investigations and thought-provoking discussions, be sure to subscribe to The Deep Dive.
Yes, please do.
We'll be right back after a short break.
Time can be a double-edged sword in these cases. On one hand, memories fade and evidence can deteriorate.
Right.
But on the other hand, relationships shift, loyalties change, and sometimes people become more willing to talk.
It's almost like time passing can loosen the grip of fear or silence.
Precisely.
Mm-hmm.
And in Sheree's case, a few weeks after her body was found, a woman arrested in Salt Lake County claimed to have information about the murder.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. She told police she had heard that Carl Big Smooth was responsible.
So, we're talking about those whispers, those rumors that often swirl around a crime, especially within certain communities.
Exactly. It's the investigator's job to kind of sift through that noise and separate fact from speculation or even, personal vendettas.
Right. And this woman's story went beyond just hearsay.
Okay.
She claimed to be a sex worker herself and said she had personally heard Carl threaten Sheree, saying something along the lines of, "You ain't nothing and nobody would miss you. I could throw you in a dumpster."
Those alleged words are chilling, especially considering how Sheree was found. It definitely casts a darker shadow on Carl's potential involvement.
But even with his new information, the police hit a wall.
Oh, no.
They tried to interview Carl again a few months later, but he refused to cooperate. Wouldn't even provide a DNA sample.
That lack of cooperation is a huge red flag for investigators. It raises questions about what he might be hiding.
Months went by with no major breaks in the case. Then a chilling parallel emerged. In July of that same year, just a few months after Sheree's death, another woman's body was found. This time it was in a dumpster at a waste facility in Salt Lake City.
When patterns like this appear, it's natural to wonder if there's a connection.
This woman was Suzanne Maxwell. And like Sheree, she had a history of sex work. But initially the police hesitated to classify her death as a murder. They called it suspicious.
That caution is understandable. Each case needs to be evaluated on its own merits, avoiding premature conclusions or letting assumptions cloud judgment.
Right. About a month later, the police announced that Suzanne had died of an accidental overdose, and they wouldn't be investigating her case as a murder.
It's important to consider the context here. Both Sheree and Suzanne were involved in sex work, which sadly often puts individuals at greater risk. So we have to ask, were there any biases at play in how these cases were handled? Were certain leads overlooked or dismissed too quickly?
It's certainly unsettling that both women leading similar lifestyles met such tragic ends and were found discarded in dumpsters.
The similarities are undeniably striking. And while the police ruled Suzanne's death an accident, they did want to know who put her body in the dumpster. That act itself is a crime and speaks to a disregard for human life.
And here's another point to consider. There's no record that the police in West Valley City, where Sheree's case was being investigated, ever compared notes with the police in Salt Lake City, where Suzanne's body was found.
Wow. That lack of communication, that potential missed opportunity to connect the dots is something that often haunts these types of investigations. It highlights the need for greater collaboration and information sharing between agencies.
Absolutely. Years passed, and the investigation into Sheree's murder seemed to stall. Then in 2011, her estranged husband, Eric Green, contacted the police with new information.
Okay.
He said he had learned from someone who claimed to know the people responsible that Sheree's death was the result of a drug and sex deal gone wrong.
This is where those whispers, those rumors from the streets can sometimes lead to breakthroughs. Someone who was initially afraid to speak up might, for various reasons, decide to share what they know later on.
Right. But there was a problem with this lead. Eric didn't know the real names of the suspects. All he had was street names, L.A. and Pops.
Street names are incredibly difficult to trace. They lack the concrete identifiers that investigators need to track individuals down and build a case.
It's like searching for a ghost.
Exactly. It's frustrating, but it's a common obstacle in cases involving criminal networks or the drug trade.
Then in 2013, Carl Swanigan, Big Smooth, passed away. This was a significant development, but it didn't bring closure to Sheree's case.
The death of a person of interest can really complicate matters. It removes a potential suspect, but it also leaves questions unanswered. It's a reminder of how these cases can stretch on for years, even decades, without a resolution.
In 2018, the West Valley City Police Department tried to revive the investigation. They issued a press release to local media, hoping to generate new leads, and they used social media to share Sheree's story. But it seems their efforts didn't yield much new information.
Despite the challenges, law enforcement is still seeking answers. They haven't given up on bringing justice to Sheree and her family.
And neither has Sheree's mother, Lily. She continues to plead for anyone with information to come forward, reminding everyone that this isn't just a cold case. It's the story of her daughter, a mother, a sister, a woman whose life mattered.
Lily's determination is a testament to the power of a mother's love and her unwavering belief that even in the face of unimaginable tragedy, truth and justice can prevail.
It's that hope, that belief that keeps Sheree's story alive. And now with advancements in DNA technology and investigative techniques, there's always the possibility that new evidence could emerge.
You're right. Even cold cases can heat up with the right break. And sometimes all it takes is one person to come forward with that missing piece of the puzzle.
So as we move into the final part of our deep dive, let's keep Lily's words in mind. This isn't just about solving a crime. It's about remembering Sheree Allen and holding on to the hope that someday her family will finally get the answers they deserve. You know, it's been nearly 20 years since Sheree's life was tragically cut short. And while the official investigation might have slowed down, the search for answers hasn't stopped.
That's where organizations like the Utah Cold Case Coalition and the Utah Department of Public Safety's Cold Case Tip Hotline are so vital.
Right.
They work tirelessly to keep cases like Sheree's in the public eye, hoping that one day someone with the missing piece of the puzzle will come forward.
It's like keeping a light shining in the darkness. Even a flicker of hope can make a difference.
Exactly. And you know, it's important to remember that even the smallest detail could be significant. Sometimes people dismiss what they know, thinking it's not important, but it could be the very thing investigators need to connect the dots.
So if anyone out there remembers seeing something unusual,
Yeah.
near that dumpster behind the Hollywood video store back in January 2005, no matter how insignificant it might seem, please reach out.
Yeah. It's never too late to share what. Even if you're not sure if it's relevant, let the authorities decide.
We've uncovered so much in this deep dive into Sheree's story. A web of relationships, conflicting accounts, tantalizing leads that went cold. But there's still so many unanswered questions. Like, what happened to Sheree in the hours leading up to her death?
Right.
Who was truly responsible for taking her life and discarding her body so callously?
These are the questions that continue to haunt investigators, Sheree's family, and anyone who's been touched by this tragedy.
And sometimes the answers are closer than we think.
Perhaps someone listening right now, someone who knew Sheree, someone who was present in those circles back in 2005, holds the key to unlocking this mystery.
That's why it's so crucial to keep Sheree's story alive. Talk about it with your friends and family. Share it on social media. Keep the pressure on for answers and justice. If you have any information, no matter how small, please contact the Utah Cold Case Coalition or the Utah Department of Public Safety's Cold Case Tip Hotline. You can find their contact information in the show notes.
And remember, justice for Sheree isn't just about finding her killer. It's about holding those responsible accountable, providing some measure of closure for her loved ones, and ensuring that her life and her tragic death are not forgotten.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Sheree Allen's case. We hope this deep dive has shed light on the complexities of cold cases, the importance of continued investigation and public awareness, and the enduring power of hope in the face of tragedy.
Sometimes it feels like these cases are lost in the shadows. But with every conversation, every shared story, every new tip, we bring them back into the light.
If this case resonated with you, if it sparked any memories or thoughts, please don't hesitate to reach out or share this deep dive. Sometimes a single voice can make all the difference.
And to our listeners, thank you for your willingness to engage with these difficult stories. By listening and sharing, you become part of the solution, part of the collective effort to bring justice to those who have been silenced.
We'll continue to explore captivating investigations and thought-provoking discussions right here on The Deep Dive. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and most importantly, stay engaged.